You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the June 27th special meeting for the LaPorte County Election Board. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Good afternoon. We're going to call the June 27th, 2025 LaPorte County Election Board meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll. John Lake.
Present.
Heather Stevens.
Present.
Katie Bowen is here. Approval of the agenda.
I'd move to approve it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Approval of minutes. We have before us the February 20th, 2025 minutes. We can start with those minutes.
I would just move to table those right now since they're so long and I haven't had a chance to read through them thoroughly. So I'd say that for the next meeting if you don't mind.
John, is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Public comment. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Daryl Borton, 800 State Road 212. I gave John a copy of the letter from you for you guys with my name and email on it.
Yep.
What I want to know, since you guys referred the Civic Club to State Police, why has not the GOP 463 GOP Club been referred there? And if that's good for one, it's good for both. If it's not going to get referred, withdraw your complaint from the Civic Club and find them or whatever you got to do, because it's been going on too long. It just needs to get done and be over with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none. Old business. We don't have any agenda items on old business. Move to new business. The election code. So it was brought to the board's attention that guidelines or standardized processes would be good to discuss instead of going back and forth through email or through the media channels. The board has decided to address this in an open meeting that is publicly available for anyone to see and watch, as well as some changes coming in the law that affect current elected officials. So if we could address this today during this meeting, that's what our hope and intention is. It may be more discussion based than anything else, but it's definitely helpful for not only the board, but candidates, those wishing to run in the future, and our current elected officials. I would like to thank Julie Sinclair for bringing this up at our last meeting and addressing it with me directly and bringing it back up so that it brought the board together one more time to address it. So thank you, Julie. First and foremost, there is a change in the election code that is going to affect all current elected officials. I know it's probably on here as item 8C, so we'll get to that just as one of the items. It has been asked how the election board maintains process, how we handle review of reports and what kind of guidelines people can expect. And though it seems like an easy answer, the answer is the election code. We follow the election code and try to enforce it to the best of our ability of this board. This past 2024 reporting cycle, there weren't necessarily guidelines that we were following from a prior board or guidelines that we were trying to create. So we reviewed all 84 committee pre-primary and pre-election reports. We did not cherry pick based on party lines, pick based on how long someone has been in office. All 84 were reviewed, They were reviewed by one or all of the three of us in the span of a few weeks. And then, as the code requires, if there were defects in the reports, which could have been they didn't complete one of the schedules, or the summary didn't match what was in the schedules, or the summary of cash on hand from one report wasn't properly carried over to another, we provided notices pursuant to the code for anyone with a defective report. The code requires that the committees have 5 days to cure any defect just by filing an amended report. If they filed an amended report and there was still an error, we would have done another notice. What we agreed to as the board is that it would be best for Taylor to send out the notices and to get any responses to one general email box. And if anyone contacted her, they were given access to my cell phone number or my email address. And I checked in with Taylor regularly to get any contact information from people that had called. Quite a few people reached out asking how they could correct the defects. We kept a spreadsheet so that we shared amongst us in case anyone went to Heather directly or went to John directly. They could say, hey, your summary sheet has 15A incorrectly listed, or what have you. The majority of the people or the committees that received notice filed an amendment that cured the defect. If the defect is cured, there's no need for a further hearing. There's no need for the assessment of a fine. So as long as you're filing something for us to review, we have the ability to then audit, investigate, or ask for additional information, resources, what have you. A similar process happened for delinquent reports. So anyone who didn't file a report timely at the end of the calendar year, those annual reports, the notices were provided if they were, first of all, notices go out reminding people to file their annual report. That's the first step is, hey, this deadline is coming, please file. Then if they did not file, additional notice went out just reminding them that they were late, it was due yesterday, it was due today. The board then sent out actual notices for hearing if they remained delinquent. Anything over that noon mark on the due date is in the code deemed delinquent. So those people would receive a notice of a hearing. There were 5 committees that had delinquent annual reports from 2024 that received notice in 2025. Of those, every single one of them actually showed up or addressed their delinquency. We still have an order outstanding. That order is being addressed through other channels, legal channels anyway. So I've contacted the election division and discussed the process. It's not necessarily required in every place or even by the election division that the board review every committee that files a report. They just suggest that whatever process you do, that you do it the same for every committee that you're reviewing. So instead of saying we're going to sample 10, we did all 84. It was committees from every party, every group, every new candidates, old candidates, current elected officials, non-elected officials. It was a little bit of everything. The majority of the committees that received notice, though, did take the opportunity to reach out or figure out how they could make their defective report non-defective. So that was very helpful. As we know, there are some that are brought to hearing, and we're addressing those according to the code. It's not this board's intention, as we've talked about during these meetings, to ever make the process more difficult or burdensome for the people that are holding our elected officials, running our counties and our municipalities, or taking on the public service role. We want people to continue to do that. We want to encourage people to continue to do that. And hopefully the notices of the defective filing will result in everyone just filing an amendment or responding timely so that we don't have to have hearings or we don't have to have any fines assessed. That is the goal. But short of the code being the guideline with the short 5-day window for amending the defective reports, there isn't any other guidebook or standard that even the election division in the state provides. There are, good news, materials that are available electronically through the election division website. There are campaign manuals. There are also calendars already posted for deadline dates. And I believe that these flyers are also at the clerk's office. The election calendar for 2026 is already posted. It's a trifold. I think you have these, right? Yep. So they look a little bit like this, and they can be picked up. So I think that there are plenty of resources. It's just not all in one place. So we're trying to make things more publicly available on the clerk's site, through the election board Facebook page, and sharing information as we learn it, so that we are encouraging people to continue holding public office and wanting to run for office, as opposed to making it a burden. Go ahead. Anything else
No, I think you
about the code? Okay.
said it all.
If I have a question, is now the time or?
I think we could have open discussion, right? I think so.
Yeah,
come
that's
on up.
good.
So,
If you don't mind though, talking into the microphone so that it can be recorded. That's right.
so a couple of things. I feel like, do I need to say who I am for the?
Sure, go.
Okay, I'm
Thank
Julie
you.
Sinclair. I'm the Democratic Party chair. And so a couple of things. I think it could be helpful if the party chairs were included in the communications about who has a defective filing and who has a delinquent filing. I don't know if that's already part of the process, but I promise that I will contact and make sure that the person knows what the deadline is and offer to help them if they don't understand or are confused about it. Number one, I want to say that I think another layer of accountability is not a bad idea, and I'm happy to do that. I feel like it's my job. The second thing I want to say is the number of, there's no way to tell, there's no data that I was able to readily access that said how often are defective filings, and do we have an inordinately high number of defective filings, and is it everywhere? Is it does that seem, does 20 or 18 or 20 was mentioned last time, is that an inordinate number?
I wouldn't think so.
You don't have any data on it either.
No, when I spoke again today to the election division representative, and he said that it's very common for there to be notice of a defect, because a lot of counties are doing the forms, their committees are doing the forms manually. So it could be, a page left out, or names in the schedule that aren't included properly, or you just can't read it, or the summary sheet is different. It's if they don't amend timely that it becomes an issue. So, we had 5 out of 84 that were delinquent, and all came in to address it. That's, in my mind, pretty good success. And
Okay.
then only 2 defective reports went to hearing. 2 out of 84 is, again, a really low number. So I would say overall, the committees do a really great job already
Okay.
of reporting.
The second question is then how, I guess it's like a 2-part question. How does the board decide when a fine will be reduced and by what? Okay, that's the obvious question. That's the elephant in the room. How do you decide that? And also, how do you decide when to refer it to the state police and or the prosecutor? Like, what is the standard for that? So that, how would somebody know? Is it a dollar amount? Is it because it's your 3rd time offense? Like, I don't know.
So go ahead, John.
I don't think there's any standards. I mean, the standard is the statute. I think we're all, and it basically, as far as reduction, it has to be unanimous, okay, for reducing a fine. And the way the statute's written is it's a shall, so we have to impose the fine And I think that's exorbitant. When somebody misses and put $1,000 fine on somebody that's run for township or whatever. I mean, it just seems a little bit exorbitant. I understand what they're trying to do. They want to get people to file the reports. But when somebody does file a report and does it wrong or is delinquent or whatever, for whatever reason, then it would have to be unanimous among the board to reduce it. And I don't think basically it's whoever's sitting up here, and obviously other than Heather, who's the elected, the clerk is always going to be the secretary of the election board, but then you select me, or you can replace me if you don't like me, or same thing with Stevens, Alan Stevens can replace Katie. I mean, or who our proxies are. So it's really kind of, I think, it depends. It depends on what the issue is, first of all, because you got to deal with the civil aspect of it. I'm talking about the penalty aspect. When you get into things where it's going to be referred to the state police, because the statute is like, we investigate, we see something where there's maybe a crime involved, where the criminal offense is involved, or there's something there, that's when it gets referred. That again would be a vote of the majority of the board. It doesn't have to be unanimous. At that point, it's two out of the three would vote to either refer it for whatever reason. So there's no set. It just depends on the facts. In that circumstance, we're dealing with crimes. You got to look at it and say, does this meet the statutory requirement? Is this a crime? Is there a criminal intent here? What's going on? And then you refer it for investigation, and once it gets to the state police or the prosecutor, it's up to them to make the decision ultimately. So
I completely agree with John. I think if there's even the appearance of a possibility that it's criminal, I'm out. That's more than what I know. And it's honestly, I don't think we can touch anything like that. As far as the annual reports, if they're not filed, it is $50 a day up to $1,000.
Right.
So if you watch last year's meetings on these, if it was $50, if they were 5 minutes late, $50. And we didn't budge on that. And so we didn't budge this year. However, last year, if it gets to that 21 days, they've hit the $1,000 mark. And we don't want to fine people $1,000. But we want those reports in. So last year, if they had hit that $1,000 mark, we reduced their fine from 1,000 down to 200, because we're trying. We understand
There has to be some consequence.
right. And so what we said was, we're not going to do this again. Get your reports in. So this year, when it happened, once they hit that $1,000 mark, I did make the motion to reduce the fines to $400, and that way it's a higher penalty than last year. It's still not $1,000, and we're showing that we're gonna stay consistent. And I'm to the point that, because to reduce those fines does have to be unanimous. But if we're gonna be accused of not being equal and fair across the board, I'll stop voting to reduce the fines, and they can sit at 1,000.
It's not that. That's not the intention. It is, how do we decide? Because 1 year it was 200 and 1 year it was 400.
I doubled it.
Yeah, well, but a lot of those people are not the same people filing. You know what I mean? They're not, and so they didn't get in on the ability to have a $200 penalty. They had to jump to a $400 penalty.
I also think there has to be some personal accountability. You are putting your name on that ballot. You're serious about this. You should be doing your homework. I would have been watching election board meetings from the year before, and they do get all of the notices. They get the letter from Taylor. Hey, heads up, this is due on this date. Please make sure it's not late.
I would argue that anybody who's a first-time offender, I mean, you're on the board, you say what you will, but anytime who's a first-time person that has not done this before deserves leniency, especially if it's their first time filing for something. That's just my personal opinion. To jump them to 400 when they've never done it before in their whole lives, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's what we want. Maybe it's, if this is your, what I'm asking you to consider is making it, if you did this last year, and we're back here again. You get a $400 fine. You get $1,000. Like, I don't know. But if this is your first rodeo, literally, then you qualify for the slap on the
I
wrist.
get it. You were saying the first offense, it would be $200. Second offense, $400. Third offense, it's $1,000.
$1,000. If you three strikes, you're out. We're not going to protect you anymore.
But I think at the same time, we're going to go back to reports not being turned in. And right now, our reports are being turned in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying if for like, I understand what you're saying, but the first
I
time,
understand.
if like you give them $200 and for the first fine, but it also depends on the circumstances. Just because you're a first-time offender doesn't mean we may reduce, because of if the person is still not filing and has gotten umpteen notices and still doesn't do it. I would be on board to say I think this should be a $400 fine. It's the facts. There's no, in criminal cases, there's no set sentence. I mean, the sentence is within the parameters, but the facts and circumstances dictate what sentence a person gets.
That's okay. And I understand that. I'm just advocating for leniency for first-time offenders.
Right, and I would agree with that. I think I'm on board with that.
I came onto this board in 2021, and nobody was turning their reports in. And this has taken a lot of work.
That's progress.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
And there has been quite a bit of progress because we're enforcing the campaign finance laws.
Yeah.
Right.
And no one's arguing that. It's just nice to know, what it is or how it's going to be handled, so that people can know what to expect. And it's also my job to help make sure that fewer of them land in these positions. I get it. I'm willing to help you be responsible to help get people to do what they're supposed to do.
The goal is just to have everybody playing by the same rules.
Right. Yes, ma'am. That's it.
And there are some videos posted, all the election board meetings are publicly posted. There was discussion every time about reduction. So if someone made a motion to reduce, the board openly discussed it. And a lot of times it had to do with, how many notices did they receive? Did they respond to Taylor acknowledging receipt of the notice, or how many days late? And to John's point, if they got to the 21 days and they still haven't filed their report, well, could you file it sometime soon? We get to the point where, the one that filed 5 days late is now 5 times 50 at $250. And then if someone didn't file it at all or gets to the 30th day, we're opting to try to reduce it, where the 5-day person missed the deadline, rushes into the clerk's office, apologizes, and tries to get a check at the window. So every circumstance is thought through when there is a motion for reduction. Most of them were reduced. The ones that weren't, there was discussion about that as well before there was a vote.
I would like to see, because all the money from these fines goes into a separate fund that does not revert back. So that money stays with the county election board. And I think what I would like to see is this board maybe do some kind of a presentation early, maybe the first quarter of next year, for next year's candidates.
I like
so
that.
that they know what to expect. We have the money to put this on. I think that we should do that.
I think that's a good
That's a
idea.
great idea.
The co-chairs of the election division have some materials, and there is an individual that regularly at the December conferences puts on a campaign finance rules and how to complete campaign finance reports. I will ask if they keep a video of those, because if they do, it'd be a great jump off for
They
us.
usually send us a slideshow and
They have
things like
PowerPoint.
that. Yeah.
They have PowerPoint of their videos. I don't know that they do an actual.
I would also think that it would be a fair thing. I mean, if both party chairs, even the Libertarian Party chair, if the party chairs would like to attend the election conference, I think you guys would learn a lot.
So that is
Good idea.
that will be this December again. They did not have it in December of 24 since 25 was an off year, but they will have it again December of 25. And there is a lot of information given in the sessions about the code, and one whole session about the campaign finance forms, which would be just invaluable for helping people fill out the forms.
I think it's a great idea.
Yes, and that not all candidates can attend, but it's definitely a place to bring back information to the county. So we do have contact and some resources that I think a fall seminar, for lack of a better word, would be a great idea.
Yeah, that's great, because I do have some questions. I mean, I just, got here in March, and one of the questions I have is like, how do you track those small cumulative, like, everyone has a database where they track a raffle ticket? Like, that's not, like, I'm gonna make sure that we try to lean towards automated ways, because it's I would imagine, very difficult to track when you get a raffle ticket. Like, you essentially can't do that anymore. Like, that's kind of like ancient history.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna sell raffle tickets. I don't know what the red version of Act Blue is, but spend $10 on Act Blue and here's your 10 raffle tickets. Like, that's how you track this. Like, envelopes and stuff. Oh no.
Right.
So anyway, there's a lot, and I think, a lot has changed, since digital giving is really bumped up, and I would be glad to go and learn and make sure that we get the best compliance we can get, and we help them do that. So thank you.
We'll
for
share that
suggesting.
information and keep sending out information as it gets closer to another election year. You did mention some kind of guideline or how we determine if something gets referred, and I know both John and Heather addressed this. The only one that I know of that was referred was the Democratic Civic Club. I don't know of any others. Maybe there were before my time, or anyone else knows. That
And there've been election cases during
Back
last
in the
prosecutor.
day.
Yeah. There's not for that election campaign.
okay.
Yeah, there were other election things done though.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the prosecutor the code allows us to refer certain things to state police, certain things to the county prosecutor's office. It took months and months for the board to actually finalize any kind of investigation with Democratic Civic Club and then say, this is probably bigger than what this civil board can handle. Whether it amounts to anything, we won't know. So I know that there was a question about a complaint that was brought to the board involving another committee, the 463 committee, just earlier today, and the board is not done investigating. So
But Katie and I are not.
Yeah,
we are not, because
I'll address that issue.
And-
I'll get the comments. Yeah.
for the same reason that John didn't handle.
Yeah, because you're members of those clubs, right?
Right.
Right. So it's not done being investigated. It doesn't mean that there's unfair treatment between the parties by the board. It just means that the board hasn't made any kind of final determination on whether or not the board is going to address it, or if there's something beyond what the board feels it can address in the code. And that's the only time that something would get referred, if there seems to be intentional or knowing acts of a crime. And then it's beyond what we can do. So most of the time that won't be the case. That's not what we're looking for either. So we're not seeking to send anyone to the state police, for
No.
example.
Well, we just need to make sure that people are trained. I really think that's what it is. I looked at all the people on that list, and I'm thinking, I don't think people are trying to commit crimes here. I think people don't understand the rigor of the law.
Right.
Julie, this is actually a packet that Taylor gives out.
Yeah,
You
gave me
did get one?
Yeah,
Okay. And we add a letter in there. We give our contact information, the board's contact information, and we do our absolute best to help. I've had Republicans come in, hey, can you explain this to me? I've helped them. I've had Democrats come in, hey, can you explain this part of the campaign finance to me? I've helped them. Taylor's helped, Katie's helped. I don't know what John does. He's kind of
answers questions quietly in
he's
the
out of the
corner.
area during
I
the day.
avoid everything. I try to. Yeah.
But yeah, we do our absolute best for everybody. So
Okay, well, I think, engaging the party chairs and the training and I'm considering things that I can do within my party to ensure compliance, to make sure that people who have turned in the form to you have actually had a training under their belt. Like, I have some levers. I'm considering, encouraging people to undergo a training, and so that they for sure know what they're supposed to do. And then, it's easier to help them because they're informed.
We haven't taken a formal vote or anything, but I'm sure you can count on us for something.
Okay, that
For
sounds good.
I would say so as well. I'm hopeful that if we do a seminar, if we do more training, if the party chairs are involved, we're going to get to the point that there aren't any hearings.
That's
The defect notice will go out. People will know, oh, shoot, there's something wrong in my report. They'll know to call you. They'll know to call us. They'll call someone. They'll figure it out. And
get it solved before the 5 days.
right. And then
That's a short window, though. I will
After-
say, woo.
it's
Yeah,
really short.
yeah.
But after some time of this happening, that's typically when boards will just say, okay, we don't need to be reviewing all 84 committees. This is just a complete inefficient use of time.
That's a valid point.
And
too.
then they start doing samples, and it'll be like every fifth one in the book you pick, or we'll pick 4 or 10% from each party or something. But the idea that we would just be cherry picking specific candidates is not.
That's not the accusation. That's
for
just what is the standard, and it's difficult to set a standard. But again, I'm going to always advocate for leniency on first time offenders. So that's
Right.
just my bit. It seems like, if this is the first time somebody's doing something, somewhere along the line they just didn't know. So anyway, that's my position on it, and do that with what you will, but I stand ready to help make sure that people are educated, myself included. Hopefully I will be able to join you guys in December, and we'll do a good job and make sure we have fewer defective reports and fewer hearings going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the last one on our agenda is to talk about the legislative changes to the election code, which will affect our current elected officials.
There's a lot. There are a lot of
Right,
legislative
unpack it for
changes. I can't yet. Unfortunately, I missed our clerks conference where most of this was discussed, and I haven't been with my fellow clerks yet. I do plan to go to the court clerks conference mid-July, so I'll be bringing home a lot of information just from sitting with the other clerks and being like, all right, go over some of these with me.
Right.
So we will discuss a lot of that later on, but the biggest one was the change to the campaign finance rule.
Right.
So
Which, just so we can talk about it generally today, any elected official who's currently holding office still has to file a CFA 1 form by July 1st of 2025.
11.
Well, July 1st is the deadline, but they don't start assessing a fine until July 11th, right? Or does it only go into effect July 1st?
I thought it goes into effect
Okay.
July 1st,
So
but they
does-
have until the 11th.
Okay, so that makes sense. So they have until the 11th. Here we go again with another fine. So now it's another $50 a day fine if an elected official does not file the CFA 1 by July 11th, up to $1,000. Our concern amongst the board was some elected officials have closed their campaigns or their committees. So what are they going to do? They're going to still, as John briefly was discussing previously, have to file a CFA 1. You don't have to open a bank account. You don't have to go get checks or deposit any money. You just have to file the form. And that will continue for the entire term of office of that elected official. So that is probably the biggest change that will impact those that are currently in public service roles. A lot of people have closed their committees. We get a lot of final reports. So we will need to, and I know Taylor's already been doing this, sending out notices to elected officials and to party chairs to get a hold of the elected officials and make sure that this deadline is met. We
Yes.
will then meet and see if there's anyone who hasn't made the deadline. We'll email about it to determine how we have to proceed. There's probably going to have to be some additional notices and reminders, and whether we have to email, call, whatever we have to do,
We'll
just
do
to
it.
make sure that people know about this, because the change is happening so quickly, and the deadline is coming so soon.
Yeah.
It's not like it's coming at the end of the year this time. So that's just something we want to make sure people remember. And then there's a few exclusions to the CFA one if they're local offices and they're below a threshold of $5,000 income in the year. So there are a few times where the rule doesn't apply, and that we've had some cases like that previously. For example, where a school board member does not have to open or file paperwork, and then they do, but then they don't file it at the annual, or they don't continue to file, and that's where they end up getting in trouble with the code. So
Well, Taylor has a spreadsheet. She knows who has closed their campaign finance committees. She's already sent out letters. I'm sure next week, right after the 1st, if we have not heard from them, I'm sure the emails are going to start going, the phone calls are going to start going, and I would say if around the 7th, if anybody we have not heard from, at that point, let's contact party chairs and say this is who we need.
great idea.
Yeah, if I could just jump in for a minute, I did send that, I have a spreadsheet, and I sent that out to all of our elected officials who are Democrats, who I would love to compare spreadsheets with Taylor perhaps, to make sure we all have the same emails. But I did send that out the morning after I got the email from the election division. But I don't know I don't have a good way, I don't have a fast way to know who makes more than $5,000.
I know.
So if there's a way we can join forces on that, I would love that. I just sent it to everybody. Well, yeah, I just sent it to everybody because I didn't want to pick and choose. Well, I just thought, I don't know. So.
And the thing is, the elected, first of all, it only applies to, this new law is applying to the elected officials.
Yeah,
so
right.
if you're, and I'm not really talking to you, I'm trying to talk to the public, to the elected officials.
Yeah.
So if you're elected, you need to file this unless you're making less than $5,000 a year. At that point, you should know what you're making. But if you are getting contributions over the $500 and you're making less than $5,000 a year, you have to file the form. So that's where that exception goes away for the people that are making less than $5,000. Normally that's school board. Normally that's going to be townships or whatever. So the majority of people are not going to have to file this normally. Now, if you're a judge, you still have to file this because you're an elected official. But you got to look at that canon rule, and you can't be a chairman or a treasurer of your committee. So look at the rules on that for the judges. I just want to give the judges a
Canon
shot.
4.4. So.
Yeah. Look at that, and they, I'm sure they've been notified downstate by the Supreme Court and everybody else. But I just want to say this. So I'm hoping that the elected officials are well aware of this and they're going to file it. I think because we're doing this and being progressive about it, it's not going to be an issue, except for maybe a few narrow people that could be on vacation, right now.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think, and why we talked about this, is that this is about the time of 4th of July next week.
Right.
This is going to be, so I think if somebody doesn't file it, this is one of those exceptions where I think if the board says, hey, I was away on vacation, I didn't know I had to file it, and you can file it electronically, right, Taylor? So if you're away and you're in Hawaii somewhere, I wish I was there with you, but if you're there or you're overseas, you better get an email something, because if you file it, then it's not delinquent. And then we can deal with it as a defect, and you buy yourself some time.
Exactly.
I'll have my laptop at the fair.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Snag people right off the midway.
The week of the fair, so it's going to be even more chaotic.
Right, that's true.
I do feel bad for the people though who, if they didn't file their annual reports last year, they got hauled in, they got the fine, they paid the fine, they closed their committees,
And now they have to
and now
file.
they're gonna have to open them again. And I'm like,
And we encourage them to close them if they
we
want.
did. We tried to help.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
You can't help the change in the law.
No. And there's the other exclusion that may affect some of the elected officials locally is that if they're state office holders, they file with the Indiana
State division.
election division instead of with the clerk. So there have been confusions about
Both
that.
are online though, right?
Yes.
The election, yeah, I think the election.
Okay, well.
And again, you can email that to myself, email it to Taylor, and you're good. You've got,
Don't consider it received until you get a reply.
yes.
If we don't reply to your email, we didn't get it.
And if it's after the office closes or on a weekend, they did not get it
No,
until
right.
they reopen,
So
including the 4th.
if you'll help me out by letting me know, like on the 7th or whenever you decide.
I'll probably start Monday, but I was thinking of letting people know by the 3rd,
That's
which would be
great.
that Thursday, just so there's more time, because I know there's like a holiday in there, and I feel like, I don't know.
And then
I'm able to get a hold of everybody within 3 days, so.
Okay.
That should
we
be
have a
wrong.
lot of people that have already done it.
Done it. Okay.
A lot.
Mhm.
Well, that's good.
I'm just saying, if you see Democrats and it's past the 7th of July, CC me and I'll do my best.
Julie's coming to your house after lunch.
Here, no, at the fair, I'll catch you on the midway. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yes. Any other legislative updates anyone wants to give at this time?
No.
No? Okay.
The only thing that I don't want people to misconstrue is I'm nervous that some people in the school board position may think because they didn't receive or spend $500 in the last year, they don't have to file it, but they may have received or spent $500 2 years ago when they first got into school board. So I just want to make sure people know, like, it's when you were in office, essentially. I don't want people to think, well, I didn't raise or spend anything in 2024, so I don't have to file one because I make under $5,000. Like, they should still have to file one, because if they raised or spent $500 2 years ago when they had a committee open and they're still in office, they still need to have that committee open. It's very confusing, especially if you've been in office for a few years and you don't have a committee open any longer.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have any questions, call Taylor.
Yes.
Don't worry, she'll pass you right on to us.
Yeah, just file it. Yes.
It is. File it and we can.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. As long as it's not delinquent, that's the key.
Delinquent is the largest fine.
Yeah.
So at least getting people to file, not that it helps us tremendously, because then we're reviewing all of the reports, but it's at least there, and then it's a way to help with the education piece and send out a notice, and the people that got notices and only have 5 days to fix them were quite frantic. So I'm sure they don't want to do that again. And it was probably the first time notices really went out in that way and in mass, and they responded and they really took it quite seriously. So I think we'll be, after this July 11th one, which is new, we'll probably be in pretty good shape. That's what I anticipate.
I just want to comment that what you're saying about the new activity and the actual, like, that may be what is got people on edge, is that something is all like it's happening and it's being followed through on, and so that might be part of what's happening here. But that's okay. We're going to help them.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And the board has shown and demonstrated commitment to helping candidates get over this hump. The code is not easy.
No.
We talk about it up here and have conversation or disagreement or have to hash it through, and we know that. So, Taylor's a great resource. She knows more than most of us about all these deadlines, for sure.
Yeah.
We couldn't do it without Taylor, and we are here to try to help people. We just want to keep it as fair and transparent as possible for the county and the state.
Thank you. Yes, you should have seen my face with my first campaign finance training.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Even that campaign manual that's, this thick, that's not encouraging to the candidate, right?
We got to distill that stuff, but still make sure they know what's going on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board member comments before we adjourn?
Yeah, just a few. I mean, everyone, happy 4th of July and a safe 4th of July. And then as we talked at our last meeting, anyone with a location for Center Township,
Yes.
we really need to keep that on our foresight to think about where we're going to get someone, because we can't have it at the fire station anymore because of safety. So think about that. I do want to just comment briefly, because the what Gerald Borton had said, and I wish he had talked to me before he wrote this out and gave his speech or whatever, but there are two different cases. The Civic Club and the GOP, it's two different things. Obviously, I wasn't involved in the Civic Club and what went on with that. And Heather and Katie are not involved in this review. It's still under review, so there's no disparity. Totally different cases, totally different things. It's like comparing apples and oranges, and it'll be what it is. So I just wanted Gerald to know that. And there has been a change in the law as one of the changes, just for auxiliary clubs, that it's $10,000. I can tell you right now, this is going to get litigated because the way I wrote the statute, it says a $10,000 expenditure. So I don't know if that means total expenditures or whether it means one expenditure. And I'm looking at that and I go, that is poorly written. I go, that's going to be an issue because it's very bad. I don't know what these guys are thinking down there who are writing our laws, but I have issues with the way they do it. Barry and I have had changes to the election code before with litigation on how it's interpreted with caucuses and that type of thing. So it happens. I get it, but they didn't really think that through because I looked at it. I'm like, I really don't know what that means. And as a prosecutor, I look at it as, is that a $10,000 expenditure? One expenditure, or is it a total? I think they may mean an aggregate of over $10,000. The way it should be is that $10,000. Not otherwise, you could be $1 million. There'd be no limit. It's like as long as I'm writing a check for $999, the whole thing of $9,999, it's under, the whole banking laws. It used to be that it was under $10,000. It didn't flag the federal system. That's kind of changed now with the way things go. And then lastly, it's kind of a personal thing. NBA draft, people, Indiana basketball. And I have a personal reason because my nephew and godson is Sean Padula, who is a starting point guard for Mississippi State and played at Virginia Tech. Love the kid to death. He had the opportunity last night to be drafted by Cleveland, but they wanted to send him to the G League for a year, and he said no. So he signed with Portland. So I'm excited about that. But it would have been nice to see his name called for Cleveland, which was the number 1 seed in the East. And but I'm so proud of him, and I just big shout out to him as his godfather. I love the kid to death. So anyway, that's my.
All right. Well, congratulations. Yes, congratulations.
Thanks.
No, I do want to thank Jody Slaybaugh for stepping in at the last minute for me at the last meeting, or the little situation I had to tend to. So, but thanks. I did watch first thing Saturday morning, and I was very impressed. I felt that he voted exactly the way I would have, and I think he did a wonderful job. So he seemed to mesh well with the two of you, and that was great. So with that, have a safe and happy 4th of July.
And thank you to Julie again for bringing this to our attention. We are more than willing to meet when needed like this to have open and public discussion and allow candidates to view it from their home, go back and review it again, and try to keep this process moving forward. It seems to be making some progress, and the campaign reports are getting better, and people are, they're asking, they're bringing questions to the party chairs, they're becoming more knowledgeable, and with all the changes in the rules, the last thing we want is people to be, in trouble for anything. So, everyone have a safe and happy 4th of July. We'll see you at the fair. Hopefully it's not 98 and humid. All right.
Motion adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
Right.